Public speaking, a topic that makes a lot of people nervous, makes a lot of people fearful. When you look at the top fears that people have, public speaking is pretty high on the list. And a lot of people, when they even think about getting in front of large groups of people, they automatically just start to feel fear. And so, what I want to talk about in today's episode of Made Leader Mondays is just, what do you do when you feel the nerves? You begin to sweat, you begin to feel your heart racing. What do you do in those moments, and how do you get over the fear of public speaking? What's up, everybody? My name is Terrence Lee, aka the Introvert Leader, and this series is Made Leader Mondays, and it's really all about just empowering existing and aspiring leaders to become their best selves and to grow. So this is a series that I used to do a while back. I decided to bring it back, and I'm super excited about it. So I hope you're going to enjoy the topic today. So for today's topic, we're talking about public speaking. And so I used to hate talking in front of people. I mean, if I had my choice between talking in front of people and doing just about anything else, like I would have taken that anything else. I mean, talking in front of people was a big just hurdle for me for a long time. So I'm passionate about helping people with that. And I hope that some of the tips and things we're going to talk about are going to help you out. One thing that I first wanted to start with is talking about what are some of the common fears as it relates to public speaking. And as I go through this list, I want you to think about which of these are you. What are the ones that you identify with? What are the ones that, you hear it and you're like, yeah, that's me. Like, that's the fear that I get. I know that I've got at least one or two on the list. So when we look at, common fears with public speaking, the first is the fear of failing. Okay, so just in general, the fear of failing as a speaker, and that's just related to self-doubt, right? The next one, the fear of forgetting the content. So what if you start talking in front of these people and you just totally forget what to say, right? You have it all planned out, maybe you've even practiced, and it comes time to do it and you just clam up and you forget it. The next fear is the fear of looking nervous or insecure. So you may not even look nervous, but you feel like people will look at you like you're nervous, like they'll assume you're nervous because of the way you look and how they might perceive you. The fear of judgmental or tough audiences. So have you ever been talking in front of people or having a conversation and they just didn't seem into it? Or they didn't seem like they were following along with what you were saying? There's a fear associated with that, right? The fear of the unexpected impromptu speaking. That's a big one. So I'm going to be honest, out of this list, I'll say that's the one for me. When I am put on the spot and I had no advance notice, I didn't know I was going to be asked to come up on some stage or talk in front of people, like, that's not really my thing. Like, I've got to work in that area because when I have time to practice, when I have time to prepare, get my notes together, get my thoughts together, it's a very different situation than when it's impromptu. I don't know if you're listening to this or watching and you're the same way, where as long as you have some time, you're good. But if you're put on the spot, that's going to be kind of tough. So those are some of the fears associated with public speaking. And which one do you identify with? Just think about that list that I read off. Do any of those stick out to you? And my hope is that as we get into some of the tips, you're going to be able to identify with some of the things we're talking about and really, implement some of those things today. When you really think about it, public speaking is something that does take practice and it takes time to improve at. I mean, it honestly just takes time. So with that said, I wanted to get into just a few things, and some of the tips I'm going to talk about here, I've talked about in the past on my platform, and some of these tips you might have heard before, but we're going to put a little spin on some of these. So the first thing that's very important is to have a mantra. And so all that a mantra is, if you've ever read or studied at all on meditation, a lot of what meditation talks about is the importance of having some mantra or some chant or something that you can say to yourself in your moments of stillness, right? So One of the things that I've started to do when, I exercise is I try to have some time alone where I literally just have nothing on my plate. I can go for a nice run. And after my run, I can sit and I can meditate. And so, meditation for me, what does that look like? It basically looks like me sitting in a room or sitting outside somewhere, and I'm just repeating some phrase to myself. For me, I'm very big on positive affirmations. So it's probably going to be some phrase, related to the fact of being worthy, or, something related to my spirituality and my connection with God. Something like that. Like that's typically going to be the kind of mantra that I'm going to repeat to myself if I'm meditating, right? So you can do the same thing with public speaking. You can do the exact same thing. Because here's the deal, we say a lot of mantras to ourselves all the time and don't even realize it. One of my mantras that I used to say when I was about to speak in front of people was, I'm nervous and I'm scared. Like that became my mantra. So you can have a mantra that is uplifting or one that's tearing you down. It can be positive or it can be negative, right? So what I began to do was my mantra became, I'm the best speaker in the room. Whenever I'm about to talk in front of people, whenever I began to feel my nerves hitting, I began to feel that nervousness. I began to feel that tension before I'm going to talk in front of people. I repeat over and over to myself, just as if I'm meditating. I say, I'm the best speaker in the room. I'm the best speaker in the room. And naturally, what begins to happen is a lot of the nerves, they begin to subside. They begin to go down. It's interesting how that happens. And so, what do you say to yourself? I've talked about this on some episodes of Quiet Voice, Fearless Mind, where we talk about the importance of self-talk and positive self-talk and what we're saying to ourselves. And so, as a leader, when you're about to talk in front of people and you're about to have conversations, what are you saying? What is your mantra internally that you're repeating and you're saying to yourself? When you come up with what that is, I want you to write that down and I want you to commit that to memory, because that's going to become the place that you're going to go to and the thing that you're going to do whenever you feel those nerves start to set in. All right. So that's the first one. Come up with some mantra, come up with something positive that you can say to yourself. The next one is, it's important to focus on your breathing. Breathing. People don't think about this. I know that I didn't used to. So here a few weeks ago, I was on a panel at my job, and it was program managers and chief engineers, people that were in various roles in leadership on the program that I'm on. And so I was actually the first person on the panel that was up to speak. So there were 5 of us on this stage, and there were probably about like 100 engineers or so in the audience. It was actually my first time ever doing something like this. So it's my first time being on a panel. I mean, I've spoken in front of people, I've done engagements, and I've done briefs and stuff like that, but I hadn't been on a panel. So this was a little different. And I'm sitting on the stage, and all these people, they're looking up at me and looking up at the other leaders on the stage. And I'm pretty sure, especially for some of the younger engineers, they're probably like, wow, look at these leaders. Look at them up on this stage about to talk and everything. And they had no idea that I was a nervous wreck. I mean, nobody would be able to tell. I keep a pretty calm demeanor most of the time, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking through what I'm going to say. I'm thinking through what questions I might get. I'm trying to think through all of these different things, and all this is going on in my head, but nobody can see it. And what's crazy is my thing that happens with me is my heart starts racing. Everyone has like a different, I feel like, trigger or thing that happens to them physically when they're about to speak. For me, it's that my heart starts racing. A few weeks ago, I interviewed Nicole Jean, and she talked about how her armpits start to get sweaty. I mean, there are all kinds of different things that happen when people get nervous. So mine is that my heart starts to race. But when I control my breathing, when I start to breathe deeply, instead of, breathing super fast and getting nervous and feeling nervous, I slow myself down. When you begin to slow yourself down, slow down your breathing, take in deep breaths, right? It does something. I don't know what it is. It's like magic, but it does something to your nerves. And you begin to naturally just kind of slow down and calm down. It also, I'll tell you, helps with the pace of how you're talking. Because another thing that can happen to me at times is if I'm nervous or if I'm feeling a way when I'm about to speak, I might start speaking really fast, like talking really fast like this. Like, and it's not even my natural cadence of speech. It's a weird thing. But I think it's because my nerves are bad, right? So I have to slow myself down and get into the natural rhythm of how I communicate. And so, what's your communication style? What feels natural for you? How do you communicate best? And whatever that cadence is and that style is, that's going to be the best for you. So think about that. And when you control your breathing, it's going to truly help you to find that rhythm, to cure that nervousness, and just really get into your flow. All right. Introverts are too quiet and too weak to lead. Have you ever heard this before? Well, my name is Terrence, and for years as an introvert, I didn't think I had what it took to be a leader. What I learned was being an introvert is my superpower. If you want to learn how to have success as an introvert, then go to quietvoicefearlessleader.com to learn more. So breathing is super duper key. Another one that I really like to do, and I learned this a few years ago, is finding a friendly face in the crowd. So there are some times where you'll be talking in a meeting or talking in front of people, whatever the discussion might be. And it can just feel like people either aren't listening, or you start to ask yourself, are they getting what I'm saying? Are they even into this? You begin to ask all of these questions. And a lot of times what happens is there'll be like that one person, or maybe it's two or three, but they're the people that when you look at them, they're like nodding their head in agreement, right? Or they're nodding their head when you're talking. They truly are in tune with you. They're watching you, they're looking. You can tell that they're into what you're saying. So what you want to do, if you feel nervous, you want to key in on those people, because those people are your champions. They're the ones that are truly into what you're saying and they're locked in. And so when you find those people, it's not that you don't want to make eye contact with the rest of your audience, because you want to make sure and not lose your audience, right? So you want to scan the room, you want to look across the room, look at different people, but you want to truly key in. If you feel nervous at any point while you're talking, if you feel your nerves getting bad, you want to remember those friendly faces in the crowd, the people that are nodding in agreement, the people that are with you, the people that are really, in your corner. You want to go back to them as far as your eye contact, okay? Because if you feel nervous, it really helps when you see that somebody is on your side. When you see that somebody is in agreement, they understand what you're saying, and they're with you, okay? So locate those friendly faces in the crowd. If it's on a Zoom call or if it's virtual, you can do the exact same thing. I mean, right? You look at the people that are on camera, and you can tell, I've done this in some virtual speaking engagements I've done, where I can tell the people that are truly into what I'm saying. And as I'm talking, I'm keying in on those people. So you can do this virtually or in person. Definitely helps with nerves, and it's a big thing to do. So the next one, and probably one of the biggest out of everything we're talking about here, and I talk about this in my book, but practice, 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 practice. Okay. So I remember when I used to play basketball, and I wanted to get better at my jump shot when I was in high school. And so I would shoot a lot. I would shoot after practice, I would shoot before practice, I would shoot on the weekends, to myself, just trying to work on my shot. And one thing that I realized after a while, and one of my teammates, they noticed this and, they mentioned it to me, but I was doing all of this shooting and all of this practicing, but I had bad form. Like my form was bad. Like my shot, even though I was doing all of this practicing and everything, I wasn't practicing with the right form. So regardless of how many balls I shot and everything like that, ultimately I wasn't getting that much better because my form was lacking. And so it's really important that not only do we practice, but we practice on the right things, right? So if you have a meeting coming up, if you have a speech coming up, if it's just going to be a discussion with people at work or whatever the case might be, you want to take some notes about what is it that you want to say. Like, what do you want people to walk away with after your talk or after you've made your point? Because it's very key. I mean, sometimes we can get in these meetings and we're talking and we're getting our words out, and that's fine. But are we really getting out what we need the end goal to be? Are we really getting out what we need people to take away from what we're saying? And so I would encourage to practice it. I mean, if you have a meeting coming up or a discussion, whatever the case is, what is it that you want people to get out of it? Like, write it down, like have the notes and have a good feel for what you want the takeaway to be. Because once you know that, then you know going into that meeting or that discussion what you need people to take away from it, right? So know what you want people to take away and then practice just speaking. I mean, practice speaking. One thing about it that I'll say is I've begun to do, speaking engagements with the Introvert Leader platform, as I began to, lead a lot more meetings at work with what I do as a program manager and just having different discussions with people throughout my career. The more that I've done it, the better I've got. Now, here's the thing. I am not some master public speaker that never gets nervous. Okay. I'm just a guy that used to never want to speak in front of people that is a lot more comfortable doing it now. But I'm also a guy that still gets nervous. So it is not that the nerves go away. It's not that you're going to never be nervous. It's, you're going to listen back to this and listen to these tips. And you might have to talk to somebody tomorrow or talk in front of a group and you might still feel nervous. But guess what? You're going to at least be armed with some tips that can help you. And I also want you to realize you're not the only one. Okay. So if you think about somebody like a Barack Obama, I mean, I bring him up all the time. He's someone that has described himself as someone that enjoys working alone. He would classify as being someone with an introverted personality, but you see him speak and he's a dynamic speaker. Okay. And I don't want you to think listening to this, if you're someone that's introverted and you're a leader, that introversion and like not being able to speak publicly is linked somehow, because they're not. They're not. I mean, introverts can be amazing public speakers. Extroverts can be amazing public speakers. So practice is really the thing that separates people that can communicate well with people that might struggle. And so whoever you are, like whatever your space is right now, I mean, if you're used to talking in front of a lot of people, or if you're not used to it, the more that you practice, the better you will get. I promise you. I mean, this is coming from a guy that just never would do it. I just would refuse. And it wasn't until I just decided that I wanted to get better, I made that decision and I began to do it over and over and over again, that now I at least feel comfortable enough to do it. And, the nerves go away a lot more than they used to. So practice, practice, practice. I mean, I will say you could even do something like pick a topic at home. If you're at home and there's a particular topic at work or in business that you might have to talk about in the future, you can think about that topic and just try to come up with something to talk about on the fly about it and talk to yourself in the mirror. Just talk to yourself in the mirror. I used to do this. I mean, I would have meetings coming up that I was super nervous about. And so I would sit at home in the bathroom and I would have like my notes of what I wanted to talk about the next day. And I would just practice talking it out, having the conversation. I would also write down potential questions that people could ask. That's another thing to practice, Q&A. If you're in a situation where people could ask questions, how do you respond to those, right? So try to come up with a list of what are all of the potential questions I could be asked, and then how could I respond to those questions? That's another aspect of practice, and that'll help you out a lot as well. Okay. So again, I spent a lot of time on this one because I feel like this is the one that can truly change the game. It's just the more you practice public speaking, the more it's going to help with your nerves and helping you to feel comfortable. Okay. So the last thing that is a huge deal, and I don't think it gets enough credit or enough people focus on it. I definitely did not focus on it, and I continue to have to remind myself about the importance of this, but it's your posture. Your posture, okay? So when you're talking, What is your posture like? Are your shoulders slumped down? Do you have your hands in your pockets? Is your head down? Or are you looking people in the eye? Are your hands moving? Like these are all things that might seem very minor, but when you have a posture that's more confident, it literally helps you speak better. It's crazy. Like I didn't believe in all this stuff, and I began to really dig more into public speaking. I was in Toastmasters for a while because I wanted to improve with public speaking. I've read books on public speaking. I really began to get into it. And again, I'm continuing to try to learn to this day and try to get better. But your posture plays such a huge role in speaking. I mean, when I am sitting up straight, whether I'm talking virtually or in front of people, and I'm making eye contact and I'm engaged, when I'm doing that, I feel so much more confident and my nervousness is so much less. But when I'm in a situation where, I'm just kind of sitting there, I'm just kind of chilling, I got my hands in my pockets, I'm kind of slumped down, like I don't quite feel as confident. And to be honest, I don't feel like I come off as confident when I'm speaking that way. So, what is your posture like when you're talking in front of people? How do you look, right? Really think about this. And the next time that you're in front of a group, no matter what the size of the group is, it doesn't have to be some large group of people. I mean, I want you to just practice it, right? I mean, it could just be around your friends and you're having a casual conversation. What is your body language like? Now, I'm not saying, if you're just out with your friends and you all are having lunch or having dinner together, hanging out, that you got to, have your hands moving like you're talking on a stage or something. That's not what I'm saying. Be your natural self, be you. But in general, when you're in meetings or when you're in these different settings, talking in front of people, speaking, or whatever the case is, think about your posture. Make sure your posture is a posture of confidence. Your head is up high. You're making eye contact. You're moving hands as you're making your points, if that's something that, makes you comfortable. But it really helps with your nerves. It really does. I didn't think so for a long time. But when you have a posture of confidence, it will help you to actually speak more confidently and it will decrease your nerves. All right. So, those were 5 quick tips to help with public speaking, specifically for the moments when you get nervous. I truly hope you found this to be helpful. And we're going to get to the next edition of the series next week. I'm super excited about that one. I think you all are going to find that just as helpful, if not more. And so, again, this has been T. Lee with the Introvert Leader. Hope that everyone has enjoyed the episode, and I will catch you on the next one. God bless.